Welcome to the Nerdstalgic podcast with your host, the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm.
Howdy Beans, and welcome back to another exciting episode, an epic episode, a absolutely biblical, you might say, episode of the Nerdstalgic podcast. I'm your host, Luke the Human. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're all good, as per usual. Before we get into today's epic topic, just want to do a bit of housekeeping because I like to keep my house nice and clean. So 3 things I want you to do for me right at the very beginning of the episode. Number 1, make sure that you follow me on Twitter at nerdstalgic_pod. Number 2, if you listen to this on YouTube, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And finally, if you listen to this on Spotify, on your mobile phone, don't forget to leave a star rating. And if you can do all 3 of those things for me right at the beginning, I will be eternally grateful. So today's topic, we're going to be looking at Gladiator from the year 2000. That sounds crazy to say, but it's true. It came out in the year 2000. This episode was suggested by the absolute wonderful Tome by Tome, who does ASMR readings of books and other things like that over on YouTube. She recommended this topic to me, and I figured because the movie Gladiator 2 is going to be released this year in November, I figured it'd be a good idea to check the film out. If you would like shouted out, and if you'd like your name mentioned, all you got to do is recommend a topic, either on YouTube in the comments. Let me know a topic down there, or message me on Twitter or something like that. Any sort of movie, video game, book, TV show, whatever it is. If you think that there's a topic that you want me to check out, then by all means, let me know. And maybe, just maybe, I might pick it out and I'll give you a shout out. But you have to let me know any ideas that you want. So again, thank you very much to Tone by Tone for recommending this movie. Now, before we get into my thoughts and feelings about it, I'm going to read the synopsis of the plot. So, Gladiator, from the year 2000, set in Roman times, the story of a once powerful general forced to become a common gladiator. The emperor's son is enraged when he is passed over as heir in favour of his father's favourite general. He kills his father and arranges the murder of the general's family, and the general is sold into slavery to be trained as a gladiator. But his fame and popularity in the arena threatens the throne. So that is the synopsis of the movie. Now, I'm going to be completely open and honest with you all right now. I have actually never, ever seen this movie before. This is one of those things, and this is one of them movies where anybody asks me or anybody brings this film up straight away, oh yeah, I've seen Gladiator. Yeah, I know that movie. I've seen it. Good film. Yeah, Russell Crowe. Great. And for the majority of people, that's enough, to be honest. That kind of does a lot of people. Nobody really asks extra questions after that. It goes, oh yeah, I've seen Gladiator, it's good as well. And then they just move on. But yeah, this is one of them things that that I always say that I've watched when I haven't. And I'll be honest, I have no reason as to why I haven't watched it. I love Russell Crowe. This movie is very highly well known for being epic and great, and one of the best movies of all time. I think one of the reasons why I missed it growing up is the fact that I was born in 98. This movie came out in the year 2000, so I was about 2 years old. And in that stage in time, again, being too young, but majority of the movies that I was watching were up on the lines of like Star Wars and Lord of the Rings were coming in soon anyway. And movies like this and like fantasy films, science fiction, and it was just one of them films that just passed me. So if it ever was on TV, I probably was too young to actually understand what I was seeing. And it wasn't like big flash colours like Star Wars, things like that. So that's probably why I missed it. As for being an adult and why I never got around to it, I don't know. So today is going to be the popping of my Gladiator cherry, as they say. I'm going to be giving it a go. And I'm quite excited because it's a film that everybody apparently should watch. Like, it's up there with like the Titanic. It's just a film that everybody should watch. From what I've been told by friends and listened to other podcasts and other people who've watched this movie, everybody rages about it. Everybody says how incredible it is. And it's kind of nerve-wracking in that case, because I really want to like it, because I don't want to watch this movie now and then hate it or dislike it and then be like, oh guys, I'm sorry, it was terrible. I doubt it. I really do, because there has, this movie has to be epic and great. And, if everybody else is saying it is, it's got to be. You know what I mean? So I've got my hope is quite high, but as I do with everything, I'm going to go in with like my cup empty, and I'm going to just experience it for what it is, and then I'm going to kind of give my thoughts and feelings on what the movie was and what I liked about it and didn't like and all that X, Y, and Z. So yeah, my first time going into it, I am very much quite excited. As for the movie's cast, we have Russell Crowe as Maximus, Joaquin Phoenix as Commodus, Connie Neslen as Lucia, Oliver Reed, the late great Oliver Reed as Proximo, Richard Harris as Marcus Aurelius, Derek Jacobi as Grecius, Dija Hussan as Juba, David Sofield as Falco, John Chapinel as Gasus, Tom Arella as Quintus. These Greek names aren't helping my dyslexia at all. I really do apologize if I'm butchering anybody's names here. Ralph Moeller as Hagen, Spencer Clark as Lucius, David Hennims as Cassius, Tommy Flanagan as Cicero, Sev Oleg Thompson as Tigris, and Omid Dalach as Slave Trader. So we've got a big start cast. I know majority of the people here, even if a lot of them from like side roles, like David Schofield, I know him from Pirates of the Caribbean. David Jacobi, again, the master of screen and stage, and Doctor Who, played the master. Oliver Reed, of course. Who doesn't know Oliver Reed? If you don't know your movies and you don't know Oliver Reed, you need to watch more films. Joaquin Phoenix, again, we all know Joaquin Phoenix. His brother was just as talented. Joaquin is just as talented as well. And of course, we all know him from Joker nowadays, but he's been in an incredibly amount of movies. Russell Crowe, again, everybody loves Russell Crowe. So I know a lot of the cast. I recognize a lot of the faces, a lot of the names. So it's going to be interesting to see them when they were a lot younger. So I'm quite excited for that. So as for the movie's production, so I broke it down in development, casting, principal photography, and then we'll just sort of go from there. So development, David Franazzoni, who wrote the first draft of the Gladiator screenplay, traveled across Eastern Europe and the Middle East by motorcycle in 1972. Quote, elsewhere I went in Europe, there were arenas, end quote, Frazzoni recalled. Quote, even as I went east, going through Turkey, I began to think to myself, this must have been a hell of a franchise, end quote. During a stop in Baghdad, Iraq, he started reading the 1958 Daniel P. Maxon novel, Those About to Die, which gave him the idea for Gladiator. 25 years later, Franzoni wrote the screenplay for Steven Spielberg's Amistad, which was Spielberg's first film for DreamWorks Pictures. Though Amistad was only a moderate commercial success, DreamWorks was impressed with Franzoni's screenplay and gave him a free picture deal as a writer and co-producer. Remembering his 1972 trip, Franzoni pitched his Gladiator story idea to Spielberg, who immediately told him to write the script. After reading the ancient Roman text Historica Augusta, Franzoni chose to center the story on Commodus. The protagonist was Narcissus, a wrestler who, according to the ancient historians, Herodian and Cassius Dio, strangled Commodus to death. These Greek words are really going to do me in, I swear. I do apologize. Anyway, DreamWorks producers Walter F. Parkus and Douglas Wick felt that Ridley Scott would be the ideal director to bring Franzoni's story to life. They showed him a copy of Jean-Léon Gimon's 1872 painting, Polis Vesco, which Scott said portrays the Roman Empire in, quote, in all its glory and wickedness. He was so captivated by the image that he immediately agreed to direct the film. When Parkes pointed out that Scott did not know anything about the story, Scott replied, I don't care, I'll do it. Once Scott was on board, he and Franzoni discussed films that could influence Gladiator, such as One Flew Over Cuckoo's Nest, which is another movie I haven't watched, but I've told everybody I have, so that might be the next one on the list, La Dolce Vita, and the Confortist. Anyway, however, Scott felt Franzoni's dialogue lacked substance, and he hired John Logan to rewrite the script. Logan rewrote much of the first act and made the decision to kill off Maximus's family to increase the character's desire for revenge. In November 1998, the year I was born, DreamWorks reached a deal with Universal Pictures to help finance the film. DreamWorks would distribute the film in North America, while Universal Pictures would distribute it internationally. So that was development. As for casting, before Russell Crowe was cast as Maximus, several other actors were considered for the role, including Antonio Banderas, Mel Gibson, and Tom Cruise. However, producers had Crowe at the top of their list after his breakout performance in LA Confidential in 1997. Jude Law auditioned for Commodious, but Joaquin Phoenix was offered the part after sending in a knockout audition tape. Jennifer Lopez reportedly auditioned for Lucia, but the role went to Connie Nielsen. So that's for casting. As for principal photography, the film was shot at 3 main locations between January and May 1999. The opening battle scene, set in the forest of Jeremiah, was shot at Bournewood near Farnham, Surrey, in England. When Scott learned that the Forestry Commission was planning to remove a section of the forest, he obtained permission to burn it down for the scene. The scenes of slavery, desert travel, and the gladiatorial training school were shot in Morocco. The scene set in Rome was shot in Malta, where the crew built a replica of about 1/3 of the Colosseum to a height of 52 feet. 16 meters. The other 2/3 and remaining height were added digitally. The scenes of Maximus's farm were filmed in Val d'Orca in Italy. When filming battle scenes, Scott and cinematographer Don Matheson used multiple cameras filming at various frame rates and used a 45-degree shutter, which resulted in stylized visuals similar to those found in Saving Private Ryan. For the fight sequence involving tigers, both real tigers and a dummy tiger were used. Some of the live animals were filmed on set with the actors, and some were filmed against the blue screen and then digitally composed into the scene. Crowe was injured multiple times during principal photography. Describing the impact filming had on his body, Crowe said, "I've still got a lot of little scars," he added. "I've had Achilles tendons go out, knees go out, both shoulders. This shoulder's actually had an operation on it. I've got a lower back thing, just won't go away, and that's from a couple sort of fall impacts during fight sequences." Oliver Reed died of a heart attack on May the 2nd, and before all his scenes had been filmed, his character Proximo was meant to survive, but after Reed's death, the script was revised to include his death at the hands of the Praetorian Guards, to make it appear that Reed had performed the entirety of Proximo's scenes. A body double was used, and Reed's face was digitally attached to the body of the double in post-production. The film is dedicated to Reed. I did know that Reed had died while he'd making this movie, but I didn't know that he actually had more scenes and that he was meant to do more. I generally thought, because everybody always talks about it, but I just assumed that was it. I didn't realise he had more scenes to do. So it's an absolute shame, because Oliver Reed was such a talent. But, you know, I'm glad that they dedicated the movie to him. As for sort of a bit of side stuff for you, so script complaints and revisions. So there was a lot of script complaints and a lot of revisions, apparently. So although Franzoni and Logan completed a second draft of the screenplay in October 1998, Crowe has claimed that the script was substantially underdone when filming began 3 months later. In an interview with Inside the Actors Studio, Crowe said the crew started shooting with about 32 pages and went through them in the first couple of weeks. The script was constantly changing throughout principal photography, with Scott soliciting input from writers, producers, and actors. Some dialogue was created on the spot, such as Commodious's line, "Am I not merciful?", which was ad-libbed by Phoenix. Crowe invented the phrase "strength and honor," which is a modified version of the Latin motto of his high school, "Vetere et virtue," which translate as truth and virtue. Crowe also improvised part of the scene in which Maximus describes his home to Maxus Aurelius. Instead of recounting the details of fictional places, Crowe described his own home in Australia. At one point, William Nicholson was hired to rewrite the script to make Maximus a more sensitive character. He reworked Maximus's friendship with Juba and developed the afterlife plot, Fred. He said he did not want to see a film about a man who wanted to kill somebody. Crowe, however, was unhappy with some of Nicholas's dialogue. He called it garbage, but claimed he is the greatest actor in the world and can make even garbage sound good. According to a DreamWorks executive, Crowe tried to rewrite the entire script on the spot. You know the big line in the trailer, in this life or the next, I will have my vengeance. At first, he absolutely refused to say it. So that is a little bit of fun stuff for you about script complaints and revisions. They've got a little bit here about the music. So the musical score for Gladiator was composed by Hans Zimmer, one of the greatest of all time, and Lisa Gerard, and conducted by Gavin Greenway. The original soundtrack for the film was produced by Decca Records and released on April the 25th, 2000. Decca later released 3 follow-up albums, Gladiator and More Music from the Motion Picture, Gladiator Special Anniversary Edition, and Gladiator 20th Anniversary Edition in 2020. In 2006, the Holst Foundation accused Hans Zimmer of copying the work of the late Gustav Holst in the Gladiator score. The organization sued Zimmer for copyright infringement, and the case was settled out of court. So that is everything I have to say about Gladiator. I'm really excited to go into it. Like I said, this movie, it's very well known for being one of the greatest of all time, one of the greatest performances ever by Russell Crowe and by Joaquin Phoenix. And again, the late, great Oliver Reed was in this movie. So I can't wait. I'm really excited. So I'm done here. I'm going to go off and watch this movie, and I'll be back in a second to let you know what I thought. Allons-y. Are you not entertained? What more do I have to do to impress you gods of the podcasting realm? To listen to my episodes, to like and subscribe, to follow me on Twitter, and to leave me a rating on Spotify. What more, pray tell, must I do? I tell you what I've got to do. Review Gladiator. Oh my God, what has taken me so long in my life to watch this movie? As you can tell, I'm enthralled. That was 2 hours and 38 minutes that just flew by like that. This movie is epic. It's on the scale of a film, of the directing, the cinematography, the set pieces, the production value, the music, everything. It is on the level of spectacle and cinema that we just don't see much anymore. And I don't know why. Maybe it's because people are no longer going to the cinema to watch movies like this. Maybe it's because, most of those people that say it's that idea of superhero movies are taking over the genre, that people aren't interested unless people have got superpowers and things like that. I don't know, but whatever it is, we need movies like this in the cinema. We need a proper drama that is done on such a scale that you don't realize it's drama. And that's one of the things that is so good about Game of Thrones, is that people think the reason why Game of Thrones is so good and so powerful is because of the fighting, of the nudity, of the blood and gore and dragons and fire. Yes, that helps as well. But it's the drama, it's the gripping writing, it's the character development, it's those moments between two characters at odds with each other and having a battle between wits and dialogue instead of what's with their fists or with a sword, and that's what you get here constantly. Like, don't get me wrong, the battles are epic and the set pieces for them are incredible, but it's the battle of wits. It's that moments where you have Maximus and Commodus against each other, where you can tell that each one of them wants the other dead, but there is a way of doing it, and there's Commodus can't just kill Maximus because he is beloved by the people, and Maximus can't just outright kill Commodus because he needs to do it in an honourable way, so that the people are on his side, so that the people are happy to, cast off Commodius, and bring in a new age of politics and the Roman Empire. And again, in history as well, that happens a lot as well. You need the people on your side. You can't just take it by force. You have to gain the people's trust, and you need to be the people's champion, as Maximus becomes in this story. Yeah, it's just epic. It's an epic story of revenge, really, of redemption, of basically of a man that he served his country honorably, and then he was betrayed, and then his family was killed, and then he loses his will to live. He loses his will to fight, but he quickly realizes the fact of, this is all I am made for now. Like, now I've lost my family, I've got nothing left other than to kill. And then when he gets given a directive, a sort of prerogative, a goal, shall we say, which is go to Rome, go to the Colosseum, meet face to face with the emperor, and kill the emperor, Commodus. It's those moments, it's those sort of where you're on the journey with him. And I was there all the way through. I never lost interest. I was constantly, like, I was on his side from the beginning. You didn't, in all fairness, as I said in introduction, they changed it to kind of, they killed Maximus's family so that you would feel sorry for him, that you would grow an affection for him, that you'd be on his side, you'd be out there with him on that trail of revenge. I was already there from scene one. Seeing him, you could already tell that he was a very noble, very honourable person, character, soldier, and that his men would follow him to the end. And I take stuff like that very heart very closely, from reading a lot of books, reading a lot of history books, playing a lot of video games, watching a lot of movies, that sort of thing. If you want to stop an army, you stop the general. Now, that's just not just a quote from Jack Frost. That is true fact. The general leads the army. The general is what gives the people the will to keep fighting. If you take down the general, then it's complete disarray. The men have lost their champion, have lost their guide, and a lot of them will just throw down arms and give up. Some will fight to the death, but majority will stop. And this is the kind of power that Maximus had on his men. And from then on, from realizing that they would go headfirst into hell because he said so, is enough for me to go, I will follow this man myself. And then you get the moment where Commodus kills his family, and I'm there with him 100%, like no fault at all. Like, yes, if this man came to me and told me to run head first into the flames, I would do it because he told me to, because that is the type of person that you follow. And it was just an incredible journey. And I don't know why it's taken me this long to finally watch this film, but I am so incredibly glad that I have. So glad. I was going to move on to the story, but I've already mentioned majority of the story. So, yeah, I really loved it, enjoyed it. Great story, incredible cast. Again, this journey going with Maximus, as he's a soldier, then he gets betrayed, and he becomes a slave, then a gladiator, and then he tries to overthrow the Roman government, or even, shall we say, the Roman Empire, Roman emperor. And then his final wish is to things to go back to the way that they was, to go back to being peaceful, to kind of fulfill that dying wish of Marcus Aurelius. It's an incredible movie. It's a long film. Don't get me wrong. Yes, like I said, I made a joke of it in the beginning. It is a 2 hour and 38-minute long movie, but I tell you what, it flies by because there is always something going on. There is it reminds me of classic movies. This movie is a director's movie. This is kind of what when you go to cinema school, if you ever go to learn media and film, this is one of them movies that I can guarantee most likely will be one of those that you study, because it is very much a director's movie. Every single scene is close, tight shots of characters doing incredible dialogue, and and I'll talk about the cast in a minute. There's so many standouts, but I've managed to narrow it down to ones that I love the most. It was hard to pick, but these guys were just incredible. But hard hitting, incredible dialogue in every scene. When you've not got incredible dialogue, you've just got incredible visuals. You've got the fighting, you've got the gore, you've got the gladiator pits, you've got the visuals of Rome, of how Rome looks, and you've got, in Germany where they're fighting the barbarians. It's I was awestruck because the instant I saw it, the first thought I had in my head was, why don't we have movies like this anymore? I think the last movie I remember seeing on this level, I think was The Lost Legion with Channing Tatum. I think it was. But I can't remember seeing a movie like this. I haven't seen Napoleon yet, so I don't know if that is any good. But I can't remember last seeing a battle like this in a film. I think the last time I actually seen anything like this would be Game of Thrones. But because there was a lot of similarities with I think it's called the Battle of the Bastards. That big fight, where they're all fighting against each other, and you've got Jon Snow in the middle, crushed, can't even, he's so crushed he can't even swing a sword. Like, that's what it would have been like. It would have been close quarters. It would have, there are moments where Marcus almost kills his second lieutenant. He's second in command, just because you're in that rage. You go around him, gets him, realizes it's him, goes back round, goes for another enemy. Very tight knit quarters, blood, mud. It's so close, and one wrong move, you can get yourself killed, or kill your best friend, or somebody else on your team, whatever. Epic battles. So every single scene in this movie is hard hitting and gritty and visually stunning, and then you add the music on top of it, and it's emotive and it's powerful, and you just get lost. Like, yes, 2 hours and 38 minutes, but I tell you what, you get lost. I was lost all the way through. I was glued. Didn't even pick up my phone. I needed a toilet, but I was like, you know what, I'm holding it because I don't want to get out of that zone. I'm in the zone of the movie. I don't want to get out of it. I want to be engaged until the credits. So I stayed in. I have now gone to go to the toilet now, but I didn't for the majority of the movie because it's just that hard hitting of a story. It is an incredible story. As for sort of standouts in the cast, like I said, everybody in the cast is standout. Everybody is incredible, right? So there's not a single person here that wasn't incredible in this film. But I had to mention some standouts, and obviously I will mention the obvious ones, but I've left the obvious ones at the end because I want to talk about two very, very special actors that are sadly no longer with us. But each of these men have such a screen presence that no matter any time they were ever on screen, you were fixated on every single word, syllable, facial feature. Everything that they did on screen was just a powerhouse, and you just knew that they were oozing with talent. And it's an incredible shame that these two men are no longer on this planet, giving us such masterclass performances. So first, I want to talk about Richard Harris. You might know Richard Harris if you are a fan of classic cinema, or most recently, if you watched the first two Harry Potter movies, he played Dumbledore. Richard Harris plays Marcus Aurelius in this. He's not in it for very long. He's in it pretty much for the beginning of the movie. He plays the Emperor, Commodus's father, Maximus's kind of father figure. And to be honest, Maximus is kind of like the son that Marcus never had. But Richard Harris, he's an incredible actor. And I'll admit, I haven't seen many movies with him in. But all the films I've seen him in, like The Count of Monte Cristo, again, short role in that, but when he's on screen, you fall in love with him. He's an incredible actor. This movie, incredible, suck me and pull me in. He just has that voice. He has that screen presence that it's such a unique voice that every time you hear it, it just reams this idea and thought in your head of wisdom, of knowledge, of talent, of somebody who not only commands the screen, but I would imagine in real life just commanded the presence as soon as he walked in. As soon as he walked in the room, you knew he was there, and it was just, this is what I imagine anyway, that you just knew Richard Harris was in the room. You know, that's the kind of feeling he gives off. It's the same with Oliver Reed. But his portrayal here as Marcus Aurelius, even though short, still sticks with you all the way through the movie. Because not just because he's mentioned a lot, but it's that thought and idea that what Marcus stood for and how it was portrayed. Like, any other actor could have done Marcus's role fantastically, but because it was done by Richard Harris, because it had his voice, because it had his way of delivering dialogue, delivering lines, that every word just sticks with you, and that whenever Commodus or Maximus or any of the other characters sort of re-say lines that were said by him, or even just quotes that you didn't hear him say, but like the character say, "Oh, he said this to me," you can just hear his voice. You can hear Richard Harris's voice as Marcus, and it's so powerful. And it's a shame he's no longer with us. I think he passed away in 2002. I think he actually died not long after shooting the second Harry Potter movie. I think it was all sometime before the premiere of that movie. But he was such an incredible presence, and I need to do myself the hugest of favors and watch more of his movies. He's that good of an incredible actor, and granted, I say that even though I haven't seen him in many films, but in all the films I've seen him in, one of my favorites was originally Count of Monte Cristo. I think this one takes it now, but I need to do myself a favor and watch more of his screen presence because he was just such a talent. So I wanted to mention Richard Harris as Marcus Aurelius. Then, of course, we have Oliver Reed at Proximo. Sadly, as I mentioned, he passed away while shooting this movie, and there is a noticeable gap. You do notice it quite easily, really, the moments when it actually was Oliver Reed, and at the moments where they've superimposed Oliver Reed's face onto another actor. Or there are things like they've used old bits of dialogue that Oliver Reed had said, recorded on screen, and they've used it here. It doesn't pull you out. It's not one of those, but obviously it is noticeable. But it didn't really matter to me, and I don't think it does matter. It's a crying shame that he passed away while filming, that he couldn't finish the movie. That is a crying shame, because it would have been absolutely wonderful to see more of his character. He got a fantastic, well, yeah, it's fantastic for the character death, but I would have liked to see him go down swinging. I understand what they probably couldn't have done, him going down fighting. Again, because logistically, it probably wouldn't have been very easy to do. Probably nowadays, because we have the technology where we can do things like that. But I feel like back then, I don't think it was possible. It probably would have been a bit of a logistical nightmare. Probably would have been a lot of money. So they did him in a different way. The way they kill his character off. But it would have been lovely at the very end for Proximo to be there with Maximus when he sees him win the day. Yeah, I think that would have been fantastic. But whatever, again, like Richard Harris, even though Oliver Reed is in the movie longer, as soon as he was on the screen, I knew who he was. Straight away, I knew who he was. And his first real set sort of dialogue is honestly hilarious, and one of the best line deliveries. And he said it so seamlessly, not even like he's acting, like generally like he's asking the bloke a question. I'm not going to repeat the quote, but if you've watched this movie, you know what his first lines of dialogue is when you first meet him on screen. And I burst out laughing because it was said it so seamlessly. It wasn't even like he was acting. Like generally he was asking this bloke a question. And then they were like, "Oh, Oliver, we're shooting a movie." He's like, "Oh, yes." He said, "Oh, yeah, okay, I'll go see the slaves." That's how seamless it was. And that's just how Oliver Reed was. He was like, I'm not here to talk about his other things when he was off screen and stuff like that. But he was always, every time you see him on screen, every single movie I've seen Oliver Reed in. And again, I will admit I haven't seen many movies with Oliver Reed in. Again, I need to do myself the deepest and deepest of honors and services of watching more of these two incredible genius, talented actors on screen. I need to do myself a favor and watch more of their films. But it's still that screen presence that every scene he's in, every time he is there, you feel it. You're there with him all the way through. You're cheering for him. You're rooting for him. His character that goes from a bloke that was once a gladiator, and then he won his freedom, and then he became a sort of pitmaster. A gladiator, a sort of slave master, a gladiator seller, really, an entertainer. And he then realizes he finally gets a chance to go back to Rome, to go back to the Colosseums, and to do something incredible. But he meets Maximus, and his whole sort of life is changed upside down, and you see his character development throughout the movie, where the line, I wish I remember the line off by heart, but Russell Crowe basically says to Proximo of like, is this you with a heart or some sort of honor or something like that? I can't remember what the quote was. I really could, but it was a great line. And it was done so well. And yeah, you just fall in love with his character. I fell in love with Oliver Reed, and he is an incredible actor. And he just takes the screen away from everybody. As soon as he's on the screen, he sucks your attention. And all for all the right reasons. And it's one of those where it's a shame he passed away because he was such a talent. But for this to be his last movie, to be his last performance, powerful. Absolutely powerful. I'm not to say that he knew he was going to pass away, but you could tell he was giving it his all, that he was being himself, being his talent, being the incredible actor that he was, and just pushing it out onto the screen so seamlessly you couldn't tell if he was acting or not. Just generally, same with Richard Harris. A good actor, you don't know they're acting. Generally, they just feel as if they walked onto set and the camera's on them 24/7 and they are just living life. That is a mark of a good actor. Richard Harris had it. Oliver Reed had it. There are many actors working today who have it as well. But these two gentlemen, I need to do myself a service and watch more of their films. But Richard Harris as Marcus Aurelius, perfect. Oliver Reed as Proximo, perfect. I can understand why this movie was dedicated to him now, because his performance was just so good. So good. So commanding, and wow. So both of these men, standouts. Then we have Joaquin Phoenix as Commodus. Again, incredible talent. He obviously, we now know in hindsight how good he is now, of the movies he's gone on. Like Joker, like that movie, I've only ever seen it once. I have it on DVD, right? His performance as the Joker is that good, and is that accurate, and is that creepy and unsettling, that I struggle to want to go back to watch that movie now, because it unsettles me. And that's the point. It's meant to make you uncomfortable. It's meant to make you feel unsettled. Absolutely fantastic movie. I absolutely love that movie. But as I was watching it, I felt incredibly uncomfortable. And to be honest with you, I haven't actually watched many movies. To be honest, the only one I can think of is Joker, that made me that uncomfortable that I no longer want to watch it. I'll happily own it, have it on my shelf, and say I've watched it, but it's a movie that I wouldn't go out my way to watch. And I do want to watch it again, but that feeling of just because it made me feel so uneasy is what puts me off. That's down to Joaquin Phoenix acting. We're not here to talk about the Joker, but just to kind of give you an example of how powerful and incredible an actor he is, that he embodied that character so well that I love his performance, and that I'd love to watch him in that performance again in that movie, but I can't bring myself to watch it because it was just too good. And his performance here, I'm not saying it's at that level, but it's just so good that as soon as you see him, before you know anything about him, before you know what his motives are, who he is as a character, what he's doing, before you know actually any exposition at all. Straight away, as soon as you see him, you think he's a snake. He is a thorn in the side. He is an irritant. He is a douche. He's just straight away you look at him, you're like, there's something about him I don't like, I don't trust. He makes you feel uneasy. And that is before he says any line of dialogue. You see him straight away, you're like, I do not like him. That and then he starts to talk, and then you realize that he's he's Islami. He's a snake. He is very cunning, and that he will basically he's a psychopath. He will do whatever it is he wants to do because everybody else is underneath him, and it's kind of accurate to what a lot of Roman emperors were like, and what the Roman Empire was like for a lot of the people at the top. Anyway, was all backstabbing and politics anyway. But straight away, he conveys that sense of unlikeness and evil and conniving, and all the way through the movie, you just hate him. But you love to hate him because you grow so interested in him, and you grow so fascinated that you want to see what he does next. It's not like, again, the best example I can think of is Littlefinger in Game of Thrones, where I never liked Littlefinger from day one. I hated him, and every episode and every single season, I was like, somebody kill him. He slipped up how many times? Why has nobody killed him yet? And finally, when it happens, and how it happens, again, I won't spoil it for anybody, but it is bellissimo. It's different here because with Littlefinger, you hated him, you wanted him to die straight away. With Commodus, you understood why he had to die, and you could probably agree with it. Like, yeah, he most definitely does need to die. But at the same stage, you don't want him to because you want to see what he does next. You want to see his next movies. And again, I felt uncomfortable. I didn't know at any moment what's going to happen. My brain was like, is he going to kill the kid? Is he going to, after I just literally saw him right at the beginning of the movie kill his father because his father didn't love him. This guy's off the train. I don't know what he's going to do. And then whenever he does something, even though I'm not surprised that this is what he does, I'm still shocked at what I'm seeing he's said to do. And he still sits there like, I'm merciful. I am doing what is right, and all this and that. It's very creepy, very weird, very unsettling, but it's powerful. Again, the reason I brought up the Joker is because it's the same sort of thing. He is such an incredible actor that he can just convey this senses and emotions just by looking at him, just by looking at his face and just his presence. You can tell straight away who his character is. And in any movie I've ever seen him in, he just has this way of, when you see him, you know what his character's about before he even says anything. I don't know how he does it. I really don't. I can't explain it. Just straight away, you see him in character in any movie. Honestly, give it a go. Put any movie on with him in, and before he says anything, just look at him. And straight away, 9 times out of 10, you could probably guess what kind of character he's going to be. And then he starts talking. Straight away, that is who he is. He embodies the role of every single character he ever plays. And especially he embodies Commodus's role so perfectly that you don't know where you are with him from day one until the very, very end. And then even then when he does things, like I said, that should shock you, but doesn't, but still does, if that makes sense. Like, you know that he would do something like that, but you're still surprised because, damn, I didn't see that coming, but I kind of did. It's like, whoa, you don't know, you never know where you stand with him and his character, and it's so incredibly well done. And yeah, amazing. And then finally, obviously, we've got to talk about Maximus himself, Russell Crowe. Say what you want about Russell Crowe. I'll admit it. Granted, his movies that he's making very much like nowadays are not as great as they used to be when he was younger. But I still think he is an incredible talent. That he's been in some absolutely amazing movies. And here is probably one of his best. And I think I wouldn't be wrong in saying that. I think a lot of people would agree with me here. He just has such a command of this role. As I mentioned in the introduction in First Impressions, one of the reasons, and it's the same with Walking Phoenix, one of the reasons why I was so ready to follow Maximus into hell from the very beginning, and that I didn't need to see his family's bit murdered to fully engage with him, to fully care about him. The reason that I was on board from day one is because of the performance of Russell Crowe. Is the way that his men, the other actors and his army, his men, looked at him, and the way he looked back at them, and the way he handled himself, and the way he carried himself, and when he said what he was very stoic, and the way he just delivered the lines in every single scene, not just at the beginning of the movie, but every single scene, you straight away you're like, I would follow that man anywhere. I would follow him to the end of the earth and then some, if he asked me to, and then he starts to open up a little bit more, and he talks like, believe it or not, Russell Crowe doesn't talk that much in this film. A lot of it is through the way he looks and his visual, and again, when he is fighting. Majority of his character and storytelling is told by action set pieces done by fighting and stuff like that. But to me, that's not an issue, because it makes the moments where he does talk ever so more powerful, because you have those moments of stoicness, of him being quiet, of him being calm when he needs to be, and then you have those moments like one of the best moments of many best moments when they first get into the arena, and they're surrounded by these men on chariots going around them, and he just calmly, relaxedly, easily. I'm going to try and do my best impression. Well, not a vocal impression, but I'm just going to sort of re-say lines. He just stands there and he goes, "Anybody in the army?" And they go, "Yeah, yeah." And then he has those moments of like, "Stay with me, and we'll have a chance of survival." And straight away, these guys that have got no real like they all know each other, but they've got no real reason to trust him, but they do straight away. And some of them don't, and then they die. But the ones that do, they survive and they win. And it's an incredible battle. But it's moments like that when he does speak, his words have so much weight to them, and they have so much presence that, again, like the other actors, you shut up and listen. And you are there, every single word, everything that he said, you are there until he's finished speaking, and then you carry on the scene. It's all of the acting and all of the cast, even the ones that I haven't mentioned, even the side characters, everybody is so well cast here. It's just incredible. Like, for example, Connie Nielsen, who plays Commodus's sister, she is incredible in this movie. I'm trying to think who else. His best mate, who is a slave, who was a gladiator with him. Again, he is incredible. Everybody in this movie, there's not a single person in this film who doesn't do an incredible role. It's just amazing, and yeah, I'm just in awe of it. It's so beautiful. And then we have the music. Like I was listening to it, and I haven't spoke about this in ages. I used to go off on episodes when I was talking about movies, when I would just go off on tangents about music, like I had the music degree, which I don't. But I wanted to mention it here because the music is, like, it's Hans Zimmer. Of course, it's epic. Of course, it's incredible. But it just elevates the movie. And I've said this before. Like, I won't go into it, but without music, no matter how good your movie is, it's nothing. It doesn't matter. You need music to kind of bolster that emotional response. If you want me to feel fear and terror, you play something that's going to bolster that. You want me to feel happiness and joy, you play something joyful, happy, that's going to bolster that. With here, you want me to care, you want me to feel emotion, you want me to feel like, we're in a battle, gladiatorial sort of fight, epic scenes. You want to get my heart pumping. You need to bolster that. it's just extraordinary because Hans Zimmer, again, as always, knocks it out of the park, does an incredible job here. And there were some moments which sounded to me, and again, I have a good ear for it, and it's also some of my three of my favorite movies of all time. I've actually reviewed them here on the podcast. I love them that much. I'm sitting there going, "That's Jack Sparrow's. That's Pirates of the Caribbean. I recognize those tunes." And I'm like, I'm sure Hans Zimmer did Pirates of the Caribbean. So I quickly Google it. I'm like, he did. Obviously, he did these ones before Pirates of the Caribbean. And again, I'm not saying he stole them because again, it's his work. But it's one of those how like I'm sitting there thinking, that's Pirates of the Caribbean. That's Jack Sparrow's theme. And then to watch, to watch this film and go, oh, is this the genesis? Is this where it began? Because I was getting the same epic feelings here when I was hearing, again, even though they're slightly different, they're not exactly the same. I think they're a lot more cheerful and adventurous in Pirates of the Caribbean. Here, they're a lot more sort of somber, a lot, in a way, more epic, more sort of battle hardened sort of way of conveying the music. But I'm sitting there thinking, is this the genesis? And I'm getting into it, and I'm thinking to myself, I'll go watch Pirates of the Caribbean now after this because this is just epic. I was trying my best not to get lost because again I was trying to focus, but I was just like, oh, dun, 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 I couldn't help it. I love those films, but it was overall, this movie is incredible. I don't know what the sequel is going to be like. I watched the trailer not knowing anything, having zero context because I hadn't watched the film at that point. I know there's a lot of people online who are really against the idea of Gladiator 2, who are really against the idea of anything sort of sequel related to Gladiator. They don't like the characters, they don't like who has been asked to play the role of said characters, that sort of thing. Again, I don't know nothing. I'm a new fan, so I'll probably watch the trailer again and see what I think to myself. So I don't know what the second movie is going to hold, but I don't mind. I don't care, because if the second movie is terrible, oh well, we have Gladiator. I've said it time and time again. When it comes to remakes, when it comes to sequels, when it comes to anything on that, like when people say, "Oh, it's not as good as the first one," or "It's not as good as the original," I always say, "Okay, then watch the original." If you don't like the remake, if you don't like the sequel, then don't worry about it. You have the first one, that it was amazing, that was incredible. Watch that one instead. And that's what I do. Like, I watch the sequel, don't like it, I ain't gonna watch the sequel again, but I'll enjoy the first one. So my overall thoughts is this film's epic. It's an incredible cast, absolutely outstanding story, cinematography, visuals, art design, everything was just transported to the Roman Empire. I didn't want to leave. I had to leave, sadly, because the movie ended. But I would have happily just sort of stayed in that pocket, stayed in that moment with that music, that end credits music. I would have happily stayed in that pocket, in that arena, on my knees, running the sand through my fingers, and just looking up at the setting sun. That would have been heaven for me. That I just wanted to stay in that pocket of history. Yeah, on another level. I don't know what's taken me so long to watch this film. But I love it. And whatever the sequel holds, if it's good or bad, who knows? But I love the first film for what it is and what it does. And it's incredible. It really, really is. And that's all I have to say, is that if you haven't seen it like me, do yourself a favor, give it a watch. If you have seen it, then you know how good it is. And yeah, I'm still in awe. I'm still in shock. I'm coming down from my high at the moment. I'm still falling off that cloud very slowly, but I will fall back down to earth soon. But before I do, I want to do a bit of trivia. I haven't done this in a very, very long time. This is going to be a lot of fun. So, first bit of trivia I've got is, Joaquin Phoenix ad-libbed his scream of "Am I not merciful?" At Connie Nielsen. She wasn't expecting it, and her frightened reaction was genuine. Yeah, that again, it just adds to that feeling of you never know where you stand with Commodus. You never know where you stand with his character, and this is one of their moments. And again, it's the same for the actors. He's right next to her, and he's whispering to her, "Am I not merciful? Am I not merciful?" And then he just shouts at her, like, "Am I not merciful?" And you can generally see the terror on her face. And I'm sitting there thinking, that's either good acting or that she's generally scared. So then to look back over the trivia and to realize that was genuinely like she wasn't expecting it, just shows not just how incredible an actor he is, but also the fact of how uneasy you are around him. Like his character, you're like, I don't, dude, are you acting or are you being serious? You know what I mean? So fair play to her, because it was a terrifying, but it was very out of left field, and it was like, wow, incredible. Russell Crowe later admitted that he initially felt unworthy of all the praise and the Oscar for Best Actor that he got for this movie. After seeing the complete movie, he felt it was a director's film and that the Oscar should have gone to the director, Sir Ridley Scott, instead. Again, it's nice to know that I'm also agreed with by Russell Crowe. This is a director's film. This is a director's, and not to be crude, but this is a director's wet dream. This is what a director. This is kind of like, people say, "Oh, I'm a comedian's comic. I'm a comics comic." Basically, if like other normal people don't find me funny, but comedians find me hilarious. This is what I'd say. This is what one of the films are. This is the fact of this is the kind of films that directors watch, because it's everything you want. It's epic scenes, grand story, epic set pieces, close in shots, incredible next level dialogue by some of the best actors, old and new, ever to grace the screen. This is everything that a director could ever want. It is a director's film completely from start to finish. And I don't know, did Ridley Scott didn't get an Oscar for this movie? He should have. If he didn't, he really, really should have, because it's just an incredible film. Next one. Oliver Reed died 3 weeks before principal photography ended. Because Proximo was considered a key character, a clause in the movie's insurance contract would have allowed the filmmakers to reshoot all of Reed's scenes with another actor at the insurer's expense, at around $25 million. However, most of the actors and crew were exhausted from the punishing schedule, and Sir Ridley Scott did not want to cut Reed from the movie. Fantastic idea. That I don't know how it would have felt if he wasn't in it. The script was rewritten, and a body double and CGI were used to give Reed's character a plausible resolution. I'm glad they didn't cut him from the film. I really, really am, because again, I can't imagine anybody else playing Proximo apart from Reed. He played the role so naturally that you'd feel that was, like you wouldn't even think it was Proxima. Like generally, Oliver Reed walked onto set and then just started play acting or just being himself in costume. That's just how natural it felt. So I couldn't imagine any other actor playing the role. He does get a plausible resolution. Again, I would, obviously I know it was rewritten, but I would have preferred him to go down swinging. Again, I understand why he couldn't have go down fighting. Because that was the only thing that really, it's not negative, that's the only thing I really didn't like about the movie. It's just the fact of how he went down. I just wouldn't imagine a character like him going down without a fight. But I understand why they had to do it. I understand the reason they did it, to give him a plausible resolution. And it would have been fantastic to have him at the end. And I'm sure in the original script, he would have been there till the very, very end. It's just a shame, of course, Reed passed away. But yeah, an alternate universe maybe, where there's one universe where they recast it and reshot the whole movie, and there is another universe where Reed survived until the end of shooting, and that there is a cut of the film somewhere where you get to see what would have happened. To be in that universe, to see that version of the film would be an absolute treat, I'm sure. Also, next one. So we have the wounds on Russell Crowe's face after the opening battle scene are real, caused when his horse startled and backed up him into tree branches. The stitches in his cheek are clearly visible when he is telling Commodus he intends to return home. I didn't notice them, actually. I think I was just so enthralled by the dialogue and about, because I love dialogue in movies. Like, yeah, I love good set pieces, and I love good costumes and music and stuff like that. But what really pulls you in is the drama. At the end of the day, what pulls you in is the dialogue, and I was so enthralled by that I didn't even notice. So there you go. Yeah, those wounds on his face, they were real. That was real blood. But he kept on going. He took the hitting, and he took the licking, and he kept on clicking, or however the saying goes. Basically, long and short of it, he took the hits and kept acting until somebody said cut. Fair play to the bloke. Then finally, so Maximus's description of his home, specifically how the kitchen is arranged and smells in the morning at night, was ad-libbed. It's a description of Russell Crowe's own home in Australia. Well, if that is true, if he lives there anymore, obviously I don't know. But his description was so well done. I want to live there. It sounds gorgeous. It sounds like heaven. It is Australia, though. Never been. It's a gorgeous place, though. Always wanted to go to Australia. One thing I always want to mention, this is not trivia, it makes me giggle, where if I get it, whenever you want to convey bad guys or villains, or even just to have sort of any sort of characters on screen, majority of the time you would choose an English actor. It's just the standard, really. And the majority of the actors in this movie are English anyway. It just made me laugh where you had sort of English actors, or you'd have actors that are not from England, but would like doing an English accent, that sort of thing. Kind of like Russell Crowe's Australian, but he's like doing the sort of Brit English sort of accent. You'd have all that again, fine, and then you'd have there was one actor, and I can't remember his name, but he was the second in command to Maximus, and he has like an American accent. And it's not disguised, it's not really hidden, but it's there, and it's one of those where it didn't pull me out, it just made me giggle. It was a fact of didn't even, it's American, doesn't fit, but you know what, it's fine. It's it was just one of the things that I noticed. I was like, oh well, yeah, didn't even try to disguise it. They were like, can you do an English sort of accent? No. Okay, it's fine, we'll keep going. It's just funny. It's just one of them things that just makes me giggle. Made me laugh. It doesn't really matter. Again, it didn't pull me out. It was just something I noted, and I was just like, oh, that's funny. But yeah, so that is the long and short of it, really. I'm not going to be here all day. Again, I don't want to make it as long as the actual movie itself. But it's epic. It's incredible. I don't know what took me so long to watch it, but I finally watched it so I can scratch it off the bucket list. And I need to now go away and do myself the greatest of favors and watch more movies from Oliver Reed and Richard Harris, because they're both just incredible actors, and I think we all should as well. We should all remember how good they were on screen and how sort of dedicated they were to their craft. Yeah, incredible. So that's my thoughts and feelings on the 2000 movie Gladiator. What's your thoughts and feelings? Did you like it? Do you not like it? Do you agree with me that this is an epic movie? Is this one of your favorite films? Again, whatever you feel, any sort of feedback at all, let me all know in the comment section down below, or tweet me on Twitter. I think also on Spotify you can leave comments. I think they're activated. So again, if they're activated again, you can leave your comment down below on Spotify. But yeah, that's all I've got to say, really. I'm like I said, I'm coming down on that high, so I'm a bit confuzzled at the moment. All right, okay, got to wrap things up. So make sure that you follow me on Twitter at Nerdstalgic_pod. If you listen to this again on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe. Again, let me know down below if you'd like to see any more topics like this, or if you'd like a shout out yourself, then by all means, put it down below. Or if you just want to talk about how good this movie is, or if you disagree with me, or if you like the movie, anything like that, by all means, again, put that down below. And finally, if you listen to this on Spotify on your mobile phone, don't forget to leave a star rating. Alrighty then. So, I've been your host, Luke the Human. you've been listening to the Nerdstalgic podcast. I thank you all greatly for listening to this moment in the episode, and I will catch you all in the next one. Arrivederci.